Hello and welcome. My name is Gene, and today we're just going to move ourselves through a little bit of a hamstring strengthening yin flow. So, mostly kind of finding that balance in the body between stretching and what stretching a hamstring feels like versus strengthening and what strengthening a hamstring feels like. So, with that approach in mind, we're going to start ourselves off on the abdomen, finding your way down to the ground, making a pillow for your forearms, just so that you can let yourself rest, and connect to the feeling of your front body lengthening against the ground surface. Noticing how the breath feels as your abdomen is interacting with the ground. Normally you'd think about the inhalation, your chest rises. Now that the ground is a more solid base for the body, maybe that rising sensation in the abdomen feels a little different. All just to exhale through the nose, sigh or yawn through the mouth as always. Creating that opportunity for you to soften any thoughts in your brain, whatever the mind might have been holding at the start, even before rolling out your mat and starting to cue this particular class into your computer or your media system. All of those thoughts now give way to what your body is communicating, what you're feeling, how you're feeling, maybe even where you're feeling those specific things. So that as always, if you have a thought, a focus, something that you want to make the thread of your practice today, nice time to think about it for another minute. Now, as always, if you are comfortable exactly as you are, this is a good place to reside for the duration of your practice. Because even thinking about the hamstrings, specifically the backs of the legs, you can just reach them to the back portion of your mat, pointing through your big toes a bit. If you'd like to start finding some movement, good time to breathe in, making sure that your chin is nice and supported by your forearm pillow. And then exhale, bending the knees and flexing the feet so that the soles of the feet are facing the ceiling above you. From there, take another breath in through the nose, just pressing the front body down against the ground, almost like a flattening sensation. And then on the breath out, just starting to tip your legs while keeping the knees bent. This allows for a form of a spinal release, just from a different perspective. But it's also a way of starting to wake up the hamstrings a bit, engaging with your quadriceps. So we'll be taking a couple approaches with these bent knees perspective. The muscle memory that you're creating now could help serve you along the way today as we take another 4 more breaths. Good job. And when you find yourself back at center, we'll inhale. Legs are going to lengthen out to the top of the mat. Arms reach forward. So that on the exhale, you're dragging your hands in until your elbows are under your shoulders, starting off in a Sphinx pose today. Take a breath here, just pushing the front body like you feel your abdomen reaching down to the ground. And then on the exhale, just starting to do a couple of neck circles in each direction. Ear meets shoulder, whether you go left or right. Chin moves across the surface of your collar, just to go to the opposite side. And then just reaching the crown of the head up to the ceiling to get that little bit of a neck stretch. Take another 2 or 3 more circles of the neck. Really connecting with that space of lengthening through the legs. And heeding the messages of your neck. What does it feel like when your neck is getting a good release through the front? And what does it feel like when the chin meets the collar? So that the back of the skull gets a nice stretch. Good job. Taking another inhale, your hands move underneath your shoulders now. So that breathing out, press into the palms, knees are widening to the outer edges of your mat. Just walking yourself back to a child's pose. So you're feeling your hips press down toward your big toes. You're feeling your chest gently give way toward the ground. Doesn't have to go all the way down to the ground, of course. And while not a particular focus, you can also think of engaging with your shoulders, almost like you're reaching the shoulders toward the arms. Much the same way you're like pressing into a piece of paper or some piece of fabric to undo a crease. That same crease feeling gets undone in your back, just to add a little widening, a little expanding. Take another minute here. Good job. 2 more breaths. So that on an inhale, your hands very gently walk back to the center line of yourself. And then exhale, body shifts forward, coming back to the palms and the knees in a tabletop. Nice place to drink some water if you have some water in your space. Also a nice place to grab your blanket. Set the blanket under the knees, just for that cushion if you need it. Beyond that, palms of the hands spread wide on the mat. Shoulders are stacked above the wrists with your crown of the head, the top of your head, pointing toward the center of the room. Tailbone is reaching back behind you with the knees stacked under the hips. Take a breath. And then next inhale, we're going to reach the right toes back down onto the mat. So that exhale, body weight shifts back. You're thinking about pressing your right heel toward the ground just to start getting that stretch, that activation in your right leg. Breathing in, body shifts forward a bit, just putting more of that sensation on your wrists. And then exhale, arching back into that right foot. Should start to feel a leaning feeling all throughout the right leg. So just taking another 3 more breaths of this functional approach. Think about what it feels like when the leg relaxes from the stretch and what it feels like when you press back into the heel. Perhaps comparing those sensations. So this is that stretching moment as you're getting to connect to the muscles in your right leg. What's feeling stiff, what's feeling a little more alive and awake. 1 more breath. Good. So bringing that right knee back under the right hip, we'll take an inhale, left toes reach back, planting on the mat. And then exhale, once more shifting back into that left arch, pressing the heel toward the mat. Inhale, body shifts forward a bit, taking the strain off of your left toes. And then exhale, activating through all 5 toes, pushing down with the heel. Good. Another 3 more breaths in this functional approach again. Nice work. 1 last breath. Alrighty. So with that left leg activated now, the knee comes back under the hip. And then building off of that, breathing in, right toes come all the way off the ground. You're flexing into the right heel. Making some space between the hands. You're going to exhale, step the right foot toward the right thumb. Raise the torso into an Anjaneyasana low lunge. Now, this is another place where you can kind of explore that stretch versus strength mindset. You want to think about the right heel being placed underneath the right knee to give you that foundation in your right leg. And then the further forward you start to lean, the more into the hip space this lunge gets you, of course. Where the strengthening element comes in is actually with that bent left leg behind you. So, on the inhale, the toes are going to plant on the mat. And then bending into that left knee as you exhale, with better balance than myself. You want to think about bringing the heel of your left foot toward your rear, toward the gluteal chain of muscles. If you're ever one to reach back for that left foot, this will give you more of that stretch as you're getting an elongating sensation through the front of your left leg. The strength element comes in when you keep the left foot flexed, and then just do a couple iterations of inhaling left toes on the ground. Exhale, bend the left knee, bringing the left heel a little closer to the rear. So try that for yourself a couple times. So this yoga practice is a little bit more of a locomotive approach, functioning motor skills and how the body's mechanics work from point to point. Just getting to know how your body works a little bit more. So we take another breath. Good. On the inhale, your left toes come back down to the mat. So that breathing out, your hands come down as well. Bring that right knee back under the right hip for tabletop. Nice place to stretch the legs out a little bit. Again, drink some water at any time that you need. So, little bit of an interlude before we do the opposite side. Couple of cat-cows to give the spine some movement today. You're going to breathe in, abdomen drops down to the earth, tail and crown reach to the sun. And exhale, softening in the rib cage just to create a curvature in your spine. Good. Another inhale, front body expands as you feel the abdomen reach down toward the pelvic region. And then exhale, soften in the ribs again to give the spine a good old hug. Take another 3 more cat-cow flosses for yourself. Good. So coming back to your tabletop, we're going to take that same functional lunge from the other side. Breathing in, left leg ascends off the mat, flexing into the heel. And then with some space between the hands, exhale, left foot steps or fans to the left thumb. Chest rises. Hands bracing on your left leg to start Anjaneyasana, low lunge. You may also know this as your dragon's pose or a form of a dragon's pose in more of those yin settings. And just like before, shifting the body forward will deepen the stretch of your lunge into your hips, or finding that alignment with your left heel stacked under the left knee. Give your legs some solid placement, so that when you feel rooted in that left leg, inhale, right toes curl on the mat behind you. And then exhale, bending that right knee. Just like before, you're reaching that right heel toward the right gluteal chain of muscles. Taking another breath. And then that locomotive connection. Inhale, planting your right toes on the mat. And then exhale, lifting that right leg, bending the knee, heel toward the rear. Another 2 to 3 more iterations depending on your breathing. It's always interesting calling it locomotive, but while our bodies themselves are not necessarily cars in that sense, there is a degree of engine work that the body does, like tuning up spaces in yourself, connecting to the strength that it takes for your IT band to help lift that right heel, and then bring the right toes back down on the ground. Nice. Next time your right toes find the mat, take a breath in through the nose. And then exhale, hands meet the ground. Left leg slides back under the left hip. Just back to a tabletop. Nice. Shake the body out again. Couple of little hip swishes to a side can feel good. So stretch versus strengthen. Considering what those movements felt like for you, how are your legs feeling? Hips might have been engaged a little bit because we utilized your lunge to connect the ideas. So, there is a third posture that can allow you this moment to reflect on those impressions. Got to take a little bit of a journey to get there though. From your tabletop, you just got to choose a side, left or right. Sit back on the respective hip. The legs swing through to the top of your mat. And then just making some room for yourself on your mat to come down. I'm going to reorient my mat so that you can get a sense of how this particular positioning will look for you. Now, as we'll be in this form for a little bit, might be a good idea to have a block handy so that you can place it where you need. But I've led up to it. It's all about coming down to your spine, making sure your heels are as close to your sit bones as they want to get. So that taking an inhale, you're lifting your hips off the ground. That block goes underneath your low back. And then exhale, sinking down into a supported bridge pose. Now, for bridge pose, we generally think of keeping the heels as close to your sit bones as they want to get, as that's a good way to stretch through the legs while focusing on your back and your front body as well. But what happens when you step your feet out, keeping them still hip in line, knees nice and bent, and pressing into the feet when you've made some space for your back? So exploring this movement for yourself, palms of the hands are on the ground. Take an inhale, press into the feet just to lift the hips up. And then exhale, plant the sacrum back down on your prop. Inhale, hips come up again. And then exhale, hips plant back down. So just like with those lunges, take a few breaths, just inhaling to raise the hips up a bit. And then exhale, hips plant back down. What this is doing, because your legs are not so close to your sit bones, this is relying more on your leg strength, on your hamstring strength, to lift your back, lift your hips to a comfortable place. Versus, if you were to walk the feet back again and try that same bridge pose, now you're getting a stretch through the front of your legs, through your inner hip rotators. So it's less about a strengthening sensation in the body and more about a stretch. Take another moment or two. At any point, you are always welcome to rest with your back supported by the block, with your hips elevated comfortably. The block is just there as an insurance policy for yourself, because a lot of this testing and exploring can generate a good bit of work in the body. Nice job. Take another 4 more iterations of breath for you. Now, as a way of protecting your back for the going down, think about bringing your feet back toward the sit bones if the feet were still extended a little bit. From your explorations, inhale, press into the feet, raising your hips up to remove the block, and then exhale, just setting the block to a side. Hips find the ground once more. From here, it's just heel-toeing the feet to a side, and then just dropping the knees side to side, swaying them a few times to get that spinal release. And all the while, again, checking in on your legs, specifically that quadricep region down through to the calves. Our quadriceps are among the strongest muscles that we carry in our body, primarily because the quadriceps are responsible for moving us through spaces, carrying a good bit of our body composition. So ensuring that there is a sufficient amount of strength in the legs to create that option and maintain that opportunity can be nice with approaching yoga from a functionality perspective. Through functionality, the fitness then follows with time, with repetition, and with confidence and courage. But when those movements have served you, it's just heel-toeing the feet back in place and then sliding the legs down as you've arrived at the final pose of your practice today. So again, a little bit less traditional of a yoga practice, more of a function perspective. But even using that element of exploring stretch versus strengthen, it's a way of being mindful toward what your body is carrying in a given moment, which still indicates an intention of being present to the changes in how you move through space. So with that said, remember your breath always, honor your heartbeat, leave behind any tension, especially if the legs are feeling a little stiff from some of those particular movements. And finally, thank yourself for all the work that you do and all the things that you learn about yourself on and off of your mat. Every day is a new opportunity to discover something different, something that's in truth always been there in your body, but may not be as easy to discern because of the noise of the world. So enjoy your Savasana. I'll bring you back to the here and now shortly. and starting to bring some awareness back to yourself. The body being allowed to melt for a brief moment on your mat. From the pulling and stretching to the pressing and strengthening that you've moved through today, it all gives way to breathing in through the nose, taking in the sensations of this world, and then exhaling through the nose, sighing or yawning through the mouth, to remember what it feels like to be a human being on a constantly evolving and shifting planet. In time, the fingertips and toes begin to wiggle softly, just as the wrists and ankles could circle, the neck could tip side to side, and of course, as it's your space for your practice to take shape, make any movements that feel good for you. Anything that honors and strengthens your tether to this corporeal plane. And as you find yourself sufficiently re-immersed in this ever-shifting world once more, you are welcome to end your practice in your conjured savasana, just as you're welcome to meet me in a seat of your choosing, orienting yourself somewhere on your mat in a chosen way that serves as your practice's sealed conclusion, resonating through the arms, legs, and eyes. And as you arrive in that sealing shape, I offer you my utmost gratitude for spending a little bit of your day with me on your mat. A slightly different form of a yoga practice in observing the body through comparing sensations and how you move through space. But it all embodies an intention of being present to the differences between when you stretch something versus when you strengthen something. To strengthen the body allows for that consistent repetition of movements. To stretch something allows for you exploring the depth of mobility that your body is feeling in that moment. So carrying those distinctive moments in your heart, come back to one more breath in through the nose. So that when the lessons have lived in you enough, exhale through the nose, or take that first big sigh through the mouth. I offer you again my thanks for taking some time for yourself. May you live this life in your authentic way, bringing your shine and radiance to this beautiful planet that we share. The luminosity in me cherishes, respects, and will always celebrate the luminous blooming heart in you. Shanti. Namaste. I greatly appreciate you taking some time for yourself on your mat, and I hope that you enjoyed this slightly different flavored approach to a yoga practice. As an instructor that generally tends to do more of those intentional and metaphysical elements in a yoga practice, I'll be the first to say that it can be really nice just to explore the physical functionality of a body in space. Maybe it does things that you know it can do. Maybe even those things that you know the body can do feel a little less accessible because of what you carry day by day. So if you take only one thing away from today's practice, may you take away the ability to exist in the ways that serve you and moving your body in a way that serves you. So until we meet each other on our mats again, may you savor the fruits of this life that come your way. May you take care of yourself and hydrate yourself always. Namaste.